Yeah. So anyway, fine. Good to be continued tomorrow because he goes through other family members tomorrow. Are we doing tomorrow before at the Siyum? I don't know. Okay, what time is the Siyum?
6:45.
6:45. That's Ma'ariv or that's Siyum?
Well, I don't know. Naftali Line told me you may not be there for Ma'ariv, wants us to wait for Ma'ariv. So I wanted to say Ma'ariv sharp at 6:45.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay, so we're up to the Mishna on Chaf Hey on the base.
Well, what's the matter, Baron?
Nothing. If he's not here now, so I don't have to start up with him.
He's by his.
I'm wasting it if I do.
Our resident oval is by his niece or his nephew's wedding. I'm not sure which one. Hopefully, he'll listen to the recording, so he'll get it that way.
He'll clarify it.
Yeah.
So Yaakov, he davened with the 7 o'clock on Sunday. Okay, he asked Saad 3 times if he could have the 3 times. I watched him. He bothered the guy 3 times, and then there was 2 guys who haven't said Kaddish already for 3 months, and he went over to him and said, "Do they need the And they're still saying that each one hadn't said the Kaddish already for 3 months."
Like, you know what? At least there's good people that that are not looking to fight. At least that much, right?
No, it's much. What saying it's much more respect when a guy fights for the Amud with another guy.
That's true.
That much more. I'm a member here. He enjoys that.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So let's see. Okay, so Zog the Mishnah. Yeah, again on Chaf. Right, that's where we left off. By the Mishnah.
The bottom of the Mishnah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Fine. So min hamadim v'lefnim, right? It's interesting because min hamadim v'lefnim is I think Modiim is around this distance, 15 mil from Yerushalyim. That's what Rashi says. Right? So I don't know exactly how far it is nowadays, the Modiim that we have now. But yeah, so min hamadim v'lefnim, from Modiim and Lefnim. What?
It's outside Har Nof, but Har Nof is not part of Yerushalayim.
Right.
Back in the day, so.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, so min hamadim v'lefnim nemanim al kli cheres. From Modiim and towards Yerushalayim, meaning not including Modiim, from the boundaries of Modiim towards Yerushalayim, all the Amaratzim are believed on Kli Cheres. Min hamadim v'lechutz ein nemanim, but from Modiim and the outside, they're not believed. The Gemara is going to ask, okay, what's the status of Modiim itself? Yeah, so Keitzad, what's the case? So HaKadosh hu moicher HaKadosh. So you have a guy who sells pots. Yeah, nichnas lefnim min hamadim. If he's coming in towards Modiim, meaning not towards, he's going towards Yerushalayim from Modiim, hu hakadar, so he himself is trusted, ve'en hakederas, and his pots are also trusted, ve'en halakuchen, and the people that buy the pots from him, neman, they're all believed that it's tahar and you can use them. Yatza, but once they go out of Modiim, going further from Yerushalayim, then ein neman, then the nemanus drops. Right? It's a fascinating thing because we discussed it yesterday, but I mean, this next daf gives us a peek into when the Chachamim make takanas, when they don't make takanas, right? So, meaning, what is the difference geographically, whether we trust them or not, right? Meaning, if it would be based on, that we know that the Amaratzim and Modiim are frumer, okay, but that's not what it's saying. It's saying from Modiim towards Yerushalayim, we believe them, and outside of Yerushalayim, we don't. Now, Rashi says, what's a pshat? Because they had a shortage, there was a constant shortage of earthenware kalim in Yerushalayim. Why? Because earthenware kalim can't be kosher. Right? And that's basically the way they used the utensils back then. The utensils were earthenware. Now, they were eating kodshim. Right? Now, they would put, let's say, their carbon into an earthenware bowl and they would eat it. Now, then that earthenware bowl gets absorbed with taste of a carbon. After a night and a day, or 2 days and a night, whatever it is, then it becomes what we call naisar, which is also to eat. So now, but you can't kosher earthenware. So what are you going to do? You have to break the earthenware kalim. Once you break them, then they have to be reheated up, whatever it is. So Mamela, because everybody was constantly breaking their plates in Yerushalayim, there was a shortage of plates in Yerushalayim. Now, why couldn't they make the earthenware kelim in Yerushalayim? So Rashi says they didn't want smoke. They didn't want the extra smoke in Yerushalayim. So since they didn't want the extra smoke in Yerushalayim, they did not allow anybody to make earthenware utensils in Yerushalayim. So Madian was the furthest or the closest place that they did it. So since there was always a shortage, so therefore even though they made a gezerah, again, this thing that amaratzim are tameh is a gezerah d'Rabbanan. But Rashi says that it's a gezerah d'Rabbanan that the tzibur is not going to be able to keep it because it's too difficult. There's going to be a complete shortage of earthenware kelim if you're going to make this gezerah in Yerushalayim, from Yerushalayim to Madian. So therefore, you have to trust the amaratzim from Madian towards Yerushalayim, and that's what we're going to do. And we're going to trust them. So it's basically all about, since it's takanas chachamim, it's all about where they made the takana, right? So that's basically why they were matir it.
Why don't the blias become pagum before they become nicer?
Why don't they become pagum before? That's the whole shiloh, whether after 24 hours and all that, right?
It's either 24 hours or 12.
Good, but you're not going to be matir. You're not going to be matir l'fagam l'chatchila, right?
No, but it never becomes nicer. It's not isser. It's
well, I don't know the rules enough about nicer, whether it becomes nicer from
Well, it should be worse than nevela, and nevela is not a nevela.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm not sure how it works. Fine. Okay. I don't know how we're going to work. What works with the pagam. Okay. So anyway, so that's what we're saying. So within Moedian, everybody, they're all trustworthy. But again, what's the status of Moedian? Moedian itself, what's the status? So Zog the Gemara, Tana Moedian pa'amim kilafnim pa'amim kilachutz. So Moedian sometimes gets the status of the inside and sometimes the status of the outside. Ketzad. What's the case? Kader yaitzev chaver nichnas. If you have the guy who makes pots going out, and the chaver is coming in, kilifnin. So it's again, we got. There's a lot of cases here. It's good practice for Yavamas. Yeah, the kader is or good spring training for Yavamas. The kader is leaving, right? He's leaving between Yerushalayim and Moediim. He's leaving, and the chaver is coming in, right? So kilifnim, then that's considered like the inside, meaning even though they're in Moediim, it's considered like the inside is going to be trusted. Shneim nichnasim, let's say they're both coming in from outside Moediim, now to the next daf. Oy shneim yoitzin, or they're both leaving, then kilachutz, it's considered like the outside. Right? So it really depends on which way you're going. Now, what about this one case that the Gemara left out? Right? What happens if the what do you call it? The potter guy, how do you call it? The potterer, whoever, the guy with the pot, the Amei Haaretz, is coming in and the Talmud Chacham is going out. Right? So then what's the status then? So that Rashi says it's a kol shekain, right? Because since the kader is going to end up inside, then just tell the chaver, go back inside. If you want to get a pot, right? Again, I don't want to make this sound too confusing, but if the chaver is leaving, the chaver is leaving from Yerushalayim, and the pot guy who's an Amei Haaretz is coming in, and they're meeting in Madian, right? So since the guy with the pot is headed towards Yerushalayim, so he's going to be the heter, and we'll tell the Talmud Chacham, you know what? Just step back inside from in between Yerushalayim and Madian, and then you got it perfectly fine. All right, so that's the way Rashi says it. Fine. So Rabaya, we also learned like this. If you have this guy with the pot and he's selling his pots and he brings the pots within the city limits of Madian, so now he's in between Madian and Yerushalayim. That's the only reason why he's trusted is because he's inside Madian. Madian gufa like Mehemen, but Madiyim itself, if he was in Madiyim itself, he's not believed. So that's the ratio. Ema Seifa, let's say the Seifa Yotza ain't a Neman. If he leaves, he's not believed. Ha Madiyim Gufa Neman, but Madiyim itself, he is Neman. Right? So meaning, so we have a stira. The ratio is mashma that is not believed, and the save is mashma he is believed in Madiyim, again in the actual city Madiyim. So the lashma mino kan b'kader yoytze b'chaver nifnas. One is talking about where the kader is leaving and the chaver is coming in, and kan b'shishnein yoytze and shishnein nichnasin, and the one that says that and that they're trusted is when they're both headed out or they're both headed in. Shma mino. So we see that that's what it is. The status of Madiyim can change depending on when they're coming in or when they're going out. Fine. So now what are they believed on? So the Gemara says, Tana, they're not believed on all utensils. They're only believed on small utensils, because small utensils like pots, bowls, that type of thing, because those things are constantly being broken. Right? But big kalim, then that's not. Because big kalim are not, they don't use that often. Meaning the small kalim they use very often. So there's going to be a shortage if we're not going to say that they're mutter. But the large kalim it's not going to be very often. Meaning, how do you define small? That's if it can be moved, if it be taken in one hand. Even if it's not taken in one hand, meaning you need 2 hands to carry it, that would still be considered small. But that's only when the pots are empty. But if they're full, then the Amei Haaretz is not. We don't believe the Amei Haaretz. Why? Because we're not going to believe him on the liquid. We only believe him on the earthenware because we said otherwise it's a gezer that nobody could listen to because there's going to be a shortage. But the stuff that's in the utensils, why should we trust them? All right, so that's what Yochanan is saying. Yochanan, even if they're full, and not only that, even if his clothing is inside the barrel, I don't know about hygiene, but if his clothing is inside the barrel, that we would still trust him, right? Because once they're allowing it, they're allowing it. But Rava says, Yochanan agrees, but the actual liquid is tameh. Meaning, Reish Lakish held that if the utensils are full, then they're not trusted, not on the utensils and not on the contents, right? And Rava is saying that Rav Yochanan is mashkin atzman, that the shein tameh, meaning the Rav Yochanan is saying that the utensils are they're trusted on, but the liquids inside the utensils they're not. So really, we have 3 shittas. One is full, nobody's trusted on, and one is that they are trusted on, and then one is that in between, they're not trusted on the liquid, they are trusted on the utensil. And don't wonder how could it be that the pot is kosher and the utensils of the pot are not kosher. Don't wonder about that. Sharei lagin male mashkin. If you have a lug that's full of liquid, right? Lagin tamein, the trumah shiva, then the lug, the flask is tameh 7 days. Umashkin tahirin, and the liquid is tahar, right? I don't know if the other remembers this case. I didn't remember the case. I had to go back and figure it out. But this was the Machlokes Beishamai and Bishil. When you have mace on the downstairs on the first floor, and you have tahar things on the second floor, and you're blocking the entrance to the second floor with earthenware, so that earthenware protects kalim, protects everything according to Bishil. And Beishamai says no, it only protects the food; it doesn't protect the actual kalim, even though that would be a scenario where the food is tahar and the kalim are tameh. Right? I'm sorry, the other way around. The mashkin is going to be tahar because it protects the mashkin, but the kalim it does not protect. So there is precedence for that. And we said that Beishamai went back and agreed with Beis Hillel. Fine. Okay, so Zog the Mishna. Hagabayin, so back then they had Jewish tax collectors that went to collect tax. So they would go into people's houses to look around for things. So Hagabayim Shenichus, and they were Amaratzim. So they're going and poking around people's houses, and then what's going to be with them making everything tameh, right? Amaratzim, we consider them tameh. So Hagabayim Shenichus l'tzeichabayis. So if you have the Gemara that went into a house, and you had ganavim shechziru esakelim, and the ganavim stole the utensils and then they brought them back. Now, they're believed to say that they didn't touch it, meaning both the gabayim and the ganav are believed, right? And now that's talking. Rashi says this is talking about for kodesh. It's not talking about for trumah, right? So meaning because we've been discussing the chumras of trumah over kodesh. So Rashi says, that's the way it would be, which the question is why that should be. But okay, but it's quite an interesting din that the gabayim and the ganavim who stole pots bring them back and we trust them. Yerushalyim nemanan ala kodesh, and yerushalyim they're believed on kodesh u'b'shas haregel af ala trumah. Right, so Amaratzim are always believed for kodesh in Yerushalayim. And during Yom Tif, they're even believed on trumah, but not the rest of the year, which is really just a repeat of what we said, right? That Amaratzim are trusted on kodesh because they take it serious. Trumah, they don't take it serious, so they're only trusted on it by the Yom Tif times. Okay, so then Gemara asks, Kabayim that come into the house, right? So the house is tameh. So the Mishna said the house is tar. So what's going on? We have a stira. So like kasha hadika nachri b'adayu had the leka nachri b'adayu. One is someone where there was a guy with them. Meaning they had a manager or an overseer with them to make sure that they searched the whole house properly for the tax purposes. So when there was a guy, okay, so let's see how the Gemara says again. Like kasha hadika nachri b'adayu. Where we don't trust them is that's where the guy with them. And that's where there's no nachri. The Tanan, if there's a guy with them, right? They're believed to say we didn't go in. If they were with the guy and they said we didn't go in, then we trust them. But if they said we went in but we didn't touch, then we don't trust, right? Because we're assuming that if once they went in, there has to be that they touch things if there's a guy that's overseeing things. So Gemara asks, so what? And when there's a guy with them, right? How come we don't believe them? The fear of the guy is on them, right? Meaning if the guy is gonna watch them, so they're gonna have this pressure to check everything, and therefore they're gonna, if they say they didn't check everything to us, we're not gonna believe them. And one says it's not the amos of the guy, it's the aim of the malchus, which means that they're gonna be ratted out. Rashi says they're gonna say the malshanayim to the king. Okay, so what's the difference between the two tirut? My benayu. I mean, they're both very similar answers. The reason why if there's a guy around, we don't trust the Amoritz is either because there's a fear of the guy or there's a fear of the Malchus. So what's the difference between them? The difference between them is a guy who's not chashuv, right? So there's nobody. They're not going to be scared of him, but they will be scared of the Malchus because maybe he can go rat them out, right? Okay. So the bottom line is that. When the guy, we will trust in our Amoritz that they don't touch the pots. We will not trust them if there's a guy with him. Fine. The ganavim that put back the kalim. So again, this is goyim. The crooks stole pots. Clearly, they're Amaratzim. Then they bring back the pots and say, "Don't worry about it, Rabbi. We didn't make them tameh." They're believed, or they're not right. They didn't say they make them tameh, they didn't touch them. Right? That's the way the Mishna says it. All of a sudden, we're trusting crooks, and the Mishna says we trust them. Right? Unbelievable. So Gemara says, if crooks come into the house, the only place that's tameh is where they walked. Right? So what does that tell us? Meaning wherever they walked, it's going to be tameh. And so if you're saying that any place that they walked in the house is tameh, it's kol shekain. If they took utensils home with them and then brought them back, that we're not going to trust them. So how could our Mishna say that we trust them? This Bryce clearly says we're not going to trust them. No, they did teshuva. So since they did teshuva, so then once they did teshuva on the Geneva, so they're going to be trusted on the Tumah too. They brought back the Kalim. Shmami, no, therefore they're trusted. Right? Fine. Yeah, so yerushalyim nemanon al kodesh, and yerushalyim they believed on kodesh. Tana nemanon al klicheres gas in the kodesh. Yeah.
If someone's a gan, if he loses his kashrus and everything, why is he not believed on Tumah?
No, but he's still an Amei Haaretz. There's a gezer as an Amei Haaretz.
Why every ganav is an Amei Haaretz?
What? I don't know.
Every ganav is an Amei Haaretz.
That's what it seems. The assumption is that they're Amei Haaretz, that a ganav is an Amei Haaretz. That's the way I understand it.
And I know some that no one.
I understand, for the most part, the assumption is that no, in these cases, an Amei Haaretz is everybody except somebody who is, I think, unless it's somebody who's confirmed that he's educated in Tahara. Right? So that's what I think. So the assumption is that a guy who's a ganav is a problem. Right? Yeah. That's what I think. Okay, either way. Okay, so let's say yerushalyim nemanon al kodesh. Yerushalyim they believed on kodesh. Tana nemanon al klicheres gas in the kodesh. They believed on the fat klicheres. Right? Before we said that in between Madian and Yerushalayim, they're only believed on small kalim, but not on large kalim. Here the Gemara is saying that they're even believed on for kodesh purposes. They're even believed on big kalim. The chol kach lama, right? How come they were so makel? So the answer is, like we discussed in the Mishna, she'ein oisim kivshonis v'Yerushalayim. They didn't make kivshon, they didn't make fires in Yerushalayim. So since they didn't make fires in Yerushalayim, therefore there was a shortage of earthenware utensils, and therefore they had to be machmer. Not machmer, they had to be makel, and they said that the gezerah of the Amei Haaretzim's utensils doesn't apply for kodesh in Yerushalayim. Right? Again, this whole din that an Amei Haaretz is considered tameh is a din de Rabbanan. So the Rabbanan have the wherewithal to say where they're going to make that gezerah and where they're not. It's not because the Amei Haaretzim are any more trustworthy than Yerushalayim, but for Yerushalayim they had to be matir because otherwise there would be such a shortage because they didn't make kivshons in Yerushalayim, and therefore they couldn't get rid of their earthenware kalim so easily. Fine. Then it says b'shas regal afal trumah during the regal even on trumah. Minani really? How do you know? From Yeshua Levi, Damar Krova Yosef Kol Ish Yisrael Le'ir Ki Ish Echad Chaverim. Right. So it says that they gathered. This is a pasuk in Shoftim, and they gathered all the people like one person. Ki Ish Echad Chaverim. Hakasav Asan Kulam Chaverim. So the pasuk saying that they made everybody into Chaverim. When Yom Tov time, everybody's considered a chaver, and therefore they're all trusted. And during Yom Tov time, we're allowed to use anything from the Amei Haaretz. Fine. So now we start with the next Mishnah, which the little bit of practical halacha we can get from this daf for today, from nowadays, but which we've discussed many times, comes from this Mishnah. So now you have a store owner, right? So he opens up his barrels to the public on Yom Tov, and even though there's Amei Haaretzim sticking their hands in his baskets of food, like Yerushalayim, you have the nuts, the stores that sell all the nuts and all that, right? So you have Amei Haaretzim touching it during the year. If you let Amei Haaretzim touch it, you have to keep it behind the counter, because if you let the Amei Haaretzim touch it, then you're chaver. All the frum are not going to buy by you anymore because you're selling tameh vegetables, tameh fruits, tameh nuts, tameh candies. But Yom Tov, since everybody's considered Torah, they were able to put it out the way they do nowadays, right? So what happens if he has leftovers after Yom Tif? So now everybody goes home. Now he's stuck with a half a barrel of product that's tameh. So he still consider it tar, or does it get back its status of tameh? Right? So that's the same thing with the Mishnah. Somebody who opens up his barrel, and he opens up his bread, right? Or dough, however it is. And dough, it's really dough. Al gava regel, because of the regel, meaning he opened it to the public, and it was mutter because everybody's tahar. So Rabbi Yehuda says he's allowed to finish it, meaning it's that barrel will stay tahar till after Yom Tov. When the Chacham say he's not allowed to, and it goes back to Tumah, right? Even though during Yom Tov it's tar, but it goes back to Tumah. I can just imagine if you paskin like Rabbi Yehuda that you can complete it. I'm sure the Kanoim back then had a whole list of which guys open up new barrels after Yom Tov, so that nobody's using this kula of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so fine. So okay, but again, it's a machlokes.
Well, why do we not? We say tchilasa mishum seifa. Why do we not say seifa mishum tchilasa?
Right. So that's mamish. That is the practical sugi here, right? So why does Rabbi Yehuda say you're allowed to complete? Again, let's just paint the case here. The guy is selling fruits and vegetables or whatever it is over Yom Tov. He opens it up for the whole tzibur. Normally he serves it only from behind the counter because he doesn't want the amaratzim making it tameh. Yom Tov, we said there's no tumah from the amaratzim. So he opens it up and puts it on the floor and everybody can take it. And everything is tahar during Yom Tov. After Yom Tov, if it finishes its tahar, it goes to become tameh. So this guy, so now, does it become tameh, or do we say no? Since it was tar on Yom Tov, let him at least finish that barrel. The reason why the Rebbe says you can finish it is because if you don't let him finish it, nobody's gonna open up barrels of food. If you're gonna tell a guy that's a food salesman that right after Yom Tov, you're gonna open up this barrel. Half the barrel is going to be left over. It's going to become tameh. He's never going to open up his barrels on Yom Tov, right? Because it's not.
Why can't he just move it behind the counter after Yom Tov?
No, it's tameh.
Why? No one touched it.
Sure, they touched it. They touched it over Yom Tov.
On Yom Tov, they touched it.
So on Yom Tov, it's mutter. On Yom Tov,
right.
It's mutter.
So now comes Cholamite. He closes. Once he closes, move it behind the counter right away before anyone touches it. Move it behind the counter before anyone touches it.
No, but it was already touched.
But it was touched on Yom Tov.
So what? It's tameh.
That's tar.
No, it was touched by an Amei Haaretz. On Yom Tov, we say that it has a heter.
Right.
But after Yom Tov, it doesn't have the heter anymore.
It doesn't have to be touched again. That touching on Yom Tov. Oh.
Naftali, you're doing good. You should go to a chassan every night. You're saying good.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you should just wear the tie every night.
Maybe you should wear the tie. Yeah. It chokes off his brain, right? What did Litvish say? Right? A tie is a gartel that separates the head from the body, right?
See them, yeah.
See them say about the Litvish, right? So, no, Rashi says like you. Rashi says what you're saying. He says that's not the case. Meaning, what Naftali is saying is why don't you look at it like it was never touched by anything tameh? Right, and then after Yom Tov, just put it behind the counter.
That would just be too logical.
Right,
so it gets into the whole Hatzalah thing, whether it's Shabbos, not Shabbos.
That is mamish the practice. That's the practical. Yes. So Naftali, Rashi caught your kasha, and Rashi says no, that's not the way we look at it. It's Rashi in the second wide line. It's still tameh. It's just on Yom Tov. You're looking at everybody as if they're chaverim. You look at all.
You have like a reprieve or something, a 10-minute reprieve.
Correct. Meaning on Yom Tov, all the amaratzim look like they're not amaratzim. But right after that, we say, 1 second, did an Amei Haaretz touch that? Yes, he did. When on Yom Tov he was considered a Talmid Chacham. After Yom Tov he was not, and he touched it. That's the way Rashi says you look at it.
It's got to be like big. That opens up what's it called. That's I don't know.
Dude, Tiago, we had this whole Claire.
It's not his touching. It's Yom Tov.
You're over on what was it? There was a certain Isser you're over on. There was Mutter. Then you go back, and you find out you really Lemafreya. You were over. We had it.
It's called Mikano La'abal Mafreya.
Right. You can go backwards.
Something that was absolutely mutter becomes usher. Without any, like a kinyan, without any kinyan.
Right, no, Hanami, right. So something along those lines. So anyway, so like Peretz is saying, so Rabbi Yehuda is saying, if you're not going to let this guy continue selling his barrel, he's never going to open up his barrel on Yom Tif, which is the same thing. Landau's not on. Is he on? That's the same heter. That's where Moshe is basing it, that the Hatzalah guys could drive home on Shabbos, right? Because if you don't allow them to go, if you don't allow them to drive home, they're never going to go in the first place. It's called heter. What's it called? Seifa mishum tchilasai, right? If you don't allow him to do this, you're never gonna have any services.
Landau's not on, but sometimes he's not wanted back, and he don't want to go back. But that's
Okay, that's yeah. Sometimes that he won't go on the call. Okay, whatever, fine. All right. So anyway, but that's the Machlokes. So Zok the Gemara. Yosef Rav Ami Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Akila Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. They were sitting on the porch of Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. Pasach Chad V'Omer Ma'oshi and Chana L'Regel Acher. Okay, so this guy have a smart idea. Take the barrel, put it away, and use it next Yom Tiv. Right? So for Pesach to Shavuos, that works. I don't know how long it'll last after that, depending on the type of food. Right? Meaning Pesach, everybody's considered tahar. Fine. So he puts it away, Pesach. Right? You only have 6 weeks, and then it's Shavuos. So then it should be. Does that work? So Amalei Idach. The other one says Yana Koma Mashrim Shavahatam and Yochanan L'Regel Acher. Everybody was touching it. Right, so Peretz would have a different issue. Peretz would touch that. Everybody's touching it. Why would you ever eat it? Right, because you need your gloves. Right, but you'll see that tomorrow night. When Peretz with his gloves. Right, I would also wear the gloves. But he's saying Yad Hakol Mamashim, and you're going to say leaving for another Yom Tov. It's tameh. So he says back to him, and until now on Pesach, everybody wasn't touching it, and it's tameh. He said back to him, right? Tumah of an Amaretz on Yom Tif, the Torah made a Torah. But now, retroactively, it becomes tameh. That's exactly what it's saying. Retroactively, it became tameh. And once it became tameh, you can't make it back to tahar. Again, the way he's saying is Pesach, they touched it. Great. On Pesach itself, it's considered tahar. Right after Pesach, at the end of the Zman, it becomes tameh. So what do you want to do? Use it again on Shavuos and make it back to tahar? That can't work. Right? That's what he's saying. Okay, so name a katana. Let's say there's a Machlokes to the Tani Chada. One said, leave it for next Yom Tov. The Tani Yidach lo yanechan al regel acher, and don't leave it for the next Yom Tov. My love Tanai, so must be it's a Machlokes Tanai. So we say, no, it's not. The one that says that you can leave it, that's going according to Rabbi Yehuda. The one that says that you don't leave it, that's going according to the Rabbanon. Right? Who say that you can't sell it anymore. But Tizbara, Rabbi Yehuda Yigmar Kamer, the word Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to finish it off. Right? So that means you don't have to wait for the next Yom Tov. You can't say that opinion's Rabbi Yehuda because again, he's asking about using it the next Yom Tov. He said, that opinion is Rabbi Yehuda. What do you mean? Rabbi Yehuda holds you don't even have to wait for next Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda holds until you finish that whole barrel, it's mutter. So Ella Hakatani Hadikatani Lo Yenechana Rabbi Yehuda. This that we said that you don't have to put it away. That's going according to Rabbi Yehuda. Hadikatani Yanichana, and the one that says that you put it away, that's Rabbanon. Umay Lo Yanichana. What does it mean? Don't put it down. She'ain tzarich la'anicha means you don't have to put it away, right? But you could sell it right away like Rabbi Yehuda. So meaning you don't have to put it away. You could theoretically keep it for next Yom Tov, or you could sell it right away. You have the choice. Okay, fine. Next, Misha Avra Regel. So now on to a new subject. So now the problem was that you had Amaratzim all over the place, and they also made the Beis Hamikdash tameh. Right? So Misha Avra Regel, when Yom Tov passed, Mavirin al Taras Hazara. Right? So you're Mavirid on the Tyra of the Hazara, meaning you go over the entire Hazara and you have to not kasher it. Yeah, I guess it's a form of kashering. You have to table it because they were all tameh. Over a regal liyam shishi, but let's say the regal was till Friday, like hayom avirin, when they covered Shabbos. Then they didn't kasher. They didn't kasher because they had covered Shabbos. Rashi says, I mean, everybody had to help out in the house. The kahanim had to help out in the house, right? Yehuda Aimer afle b'yom hey, even
with the musser.
no, because the ladies are supposed to be taking care of the house.
Musser they had at the
Okay, it's a kasha. It's a kasha, right? Fine. So Rabbi Yehuda Aimer afle b'yom hey, even if you have to end it on a Thursday, you don't do it. She'ena kahanim pnuyim because the kahanim don't have time, right? Why? Because what they have to do, Rashi says, is there's tons and tons of ashes, probably literally tons, piled up on the Mizbeach, and they have to get rid of those ashes. So since they have to get rid of those ashes, that is it's a problem. They just need the time to get rid of the ashes. So again, they kasher the entire Beis Hamikdash, but not according to Rabbi Yehuda. I'm sorry, according to the Tanakama, not if Yom Tov ended on a Friday, because then they didn't have time. And Yehuda says not even on Thursday, meaning Yom Tov ended on a Wednesday. So then, even then they wouldn't, because they needed to be around for Shabbos. They needed to get the ashes off to clear it up for Shabbos. Says the Kahanim are not available to take out all the ashes. Right? Meaning, they're not available to kasher, to toivel, because they're taking out all the ashes. Right? Fine. Okay, so Zog the Mishna.
Yaakov, there's thousands of kahanim there.
Yeah.
Thousands.
So you think some should have the time to do it? That's what you're saying.
I would think
What about
so.
the single ones?
What?
And the single Kaihanim parents is saying.
What about the single ones?
They didn't have to help out in the house.
They were looking for shidduchim then. That was the day to look for shidduchim before everybody went back from Yom Tov.
I hear. I don't know. Elamai, the ones that...
You'd have to refine the kasha a little bit. It's Matzi Yom Tov now, so it's back to the original Mishmar. All the Mishmars can't be in the Beis Hamikdash now.
No, but you mean they can't get in at all, you're saying?
It's only the original Mishmar, and it's only half of them, because the other half had to be there in the morning for the new day.
So they couldn't.
But they're in the union,
people.
they can't take out the ashes. They can't take out the ashes. What are you saying?
When?
There's 25,000 kahanim that in yerushalyim for Yom Tov. So they're not allowed to go in and help.
No, but
right?
he's saying that the Mishmar, they have, it's only the Mishmar takes it off.
Yeah, I'm just saying the kasha has to be refined a little bit. I'm not saying it destroys the kasha, but it's only the Mishmar of after Yom Tov, whichever week that is. And it's only, besides the Haktaras Chalavim Ve'varim that they had to do, presumably,
Right.
and the Dishon, and the rest of the Mishmar is coming in the morning.
But yeah, wasn't it like a union? They each had their job with the wood and everything else.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So maybe they should have been able to find some. But I guess what Gershom is saying is true. They were limited, but they still should have been able to. I hear. Okay. So fine. So how did they do it? Ketzem Avirin Altaras Azara. How did they go make the Azara tahar? Matvilan is a kelim shayi b'mikdash. They would toivel all the kelim in the mikdash. Vayram lahem hizaru, and then they would tell the Amaratzin, be careful on Tamid Beis now. Shalei tigu b'shulchan. Don't touch the shulchan. Right, the shulchan meaning where they put the lechem upon him. Right, because if they're going to touch it, the shulchan you couldn't toivel the shulchan. So they had like warnings. Make sure you don't touch it. right? Now, what's interesting is, what would these kahanim? If these kahanim were amaratzim, then l'chara they weren't allowed to do any of the avodah. So what are they doing in the Beis Hamikdash? Right?
People wanted to take pictures. People wanted to take pictures with kahanim over Yom Tov. They posted the pictures.
I hear. So it's interesting. No, there's a big tumult with this. It's actually coming up in Sefer HaChinuch. I don't know when it'll be. We'll learn when we'll get to it. It's relatively soon. But the top Tosfos says, the Kahanim Amei Haaretz ha'holchen laheichel l'shtachav kama. They're going in there to bow down. They're not going in for anything else. The Amaratzim, the Kohen Amaratzim, are going in there to bow down. Dilu Yisrael lahayiruyin leilech apen ulan lemizbeach. They can't go. Yisraelim are not allowed to go there. Only Kohanim could go there. So Tosfos holds that Kohanim are allowed to go into the heichel for no reason, even if they just want to bow down. A lot of others hold that they're not allowed to go in. Kohanim are not randomly allowed to just go into the Beis Hamikdash like that. They have to go for a specific avodah. Okay, whatever it is. So they told them don't touch the shulchan. The Gemara will discuss why. Fine. All the kelim they had in the Beis Hamikdash, they had doubles and triples. Because if the first ones became tameh, then the second ones would become tar. Then the Mishna says, all the kelim that were in the Beis Hamikdash required tefillah, except for the golden mizbeach and the nechayshis, the mizbeach nechayshis, meaning both mizbeachas. They're considered like karka, and they're not makabel tumah. Right? Not because they were like karka, but because they were, how do you call it, plated. They were plated. Yeah, fine. So we'll see in the Gemara the back and forth with this. So the Gemara Tana Hizaru Shematigu b'shulchan u'menorah. We have a brayso. The Mishna only discusses the Amaratzim shouldn't touch the shulchan. There's a brayso that says they shouldn't touch the menorah too. The Tana done my time like Tana menorah. So how come our Mishna doesn't say menorah? The brayso does. So shulchan ksibei tamid. No, so the shulchan it says it has to always be there. So how are you toiveling the? I mean, you always have to have the bread, right? The lechem upon him always has to be on the shulchan, right? So how do you ever going to toivel it, right? They took out Shabbos morning. They took out the old bread and immediately slid in the new bread. So how are you ever having time to toivel it, right? So it says tamid, but menorah like ksibei tamid, but menorah is not tamid. Right, so the menorah they would when they put it out at night, right, which is a machlokes, but then it didn't have to constantly be on, so they would let it go out for a little, then go toivel it, and then that would be fine. So that's what our Mishna held. Okay, so how come the brayso said menorah v'idach and the brayso kiminach said zayis ve'esa menorah noichach hashulchan, and there's a menorah opposite the shulchan keman dichsiva tamid dami. It's as if it says the word tamid. Yeah, the idach. So then, okay, so therefore it's considered that you always have to have the menorah, then you can't remove it. Okay, so what does the Mishna do with that? And when it says that the menorah has to be there constantly, it just means it has to be there constantly across from the shul. It doesn't mean that it has to actually be there. It's just telling you where it's supposed to be. Okay, so then the Gemara says, but typically, very interesting lashon, right? Typically, right? Usually we say v'tepik lay. Right here on this whole lumber, it's v'tepik li, which means to me. Right? Okay, v'tepik li, the kli eitz asil l'nachas. So why don't we say that the shulchan is never moved, and since it never moves, it's not going to become tameh. V'chol kli eitz asil l'nachas lo metama. And any kli that's not meant to move doesn't become tameh. My timer, what's the reason? Dumya the sack beating, because it needs to be similar to a sack. Masak without a sack could be taken when it's empty, of course, and it could also be moved when it's full. Only something that gets moved when it's full and when it's empty. So things that are not meant to be moved, like the shulchan, so then it's not a problem. So it's interesting because does anybody here? This is a fairly common question. Toivel your oven racks. Oven racks. You know the racks in the oven. You toivel them. So if you never put food straight on it,
Really, you do.
What do you say?
Tefillin for when? I mean,
No,
stop.
Tefillah scaling. Yeah. Right? So, if you never put anything straight down on it, okay, so then it's not a problem. But many people crisp their challahs straight on the thing. So I think I didn't look this up today, but I think Yerushalayim Zalman Auerbach said that you don't need to toil them because it's part of the oven, and the oven that never gets moved. Maybe for Pesach, we had this fight of it, right? That whether you move it for Pesach, you don't move it for Pesach, right? But the pashtus is it never ever gets moved. So therefore, the whole oven is not makabel tumah, and the racks are part of the oven. I think it was Shlomo Zalman, but don't pin me down to that. And therefore, it would not need tefillah.
Oh, Mamish, that's interesting because my uncle Shlomo Shalom, Rabbi Ord from Muncie, he had he took and had an oven for Pesach. He would disconnect the gas, take out the oven, put it away, and put in a new oven. Yeah, Uncle Shlomo. Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I never thought about that, but what if I never did it all the years? You do it now? No.
Do what?
Toivel it now after using it for a bunch of years?
No, I'm saying he holds it. You don't have to do it because since it never moves, it's like the shulchan, like the Gemara is saying now. It's like the shulchan. It never moves, right? It sits there for life. So therefore, it does not makabel tumah. Even though the grates do move, but since that's part of the oven, then memela it's not makabel tumah, and you don't need to toivel it. I think. I believe that. I'll try and double check that.
The eighth part of this equation is redundant. The kli eight asilunakas. It could just be a kli asilunakas.
It's any kli, right? Why does it say kli eights?
Yeah.
I hear. I don't know. But you're right. It's any kli. Well, because the chiddush is kli eights. Because if it's metal, you mean? Yeah, you're right. I hear. I don't know. I hear.
Metal is worse than kli eights.
Yeah, right. Metal would be worse. Same thing with a refrigerator. Yeah, fine. So then the Gemara says, so that's the Gemara's kasha that the shulchan never gets moved. So it won't become tameh. So why do you have to bother telling the Amaratzim not to touch it? So what it says, Hanami v'talta mali v'reikav, where the shulchan does get taken mali v'reikav. The Rish Lakish, the Amar Rish Lakish, may dichsiv ala shulchan atar. It says that they put the bread on the shulchan atar. That sounds like machlal shu tameh. It sounds like it could become tameh. Famai. Why could it become tameh? Kli eitz asli nachasu. It's a kli eitz that's meant to rest. Ve'ena makabel tumah. It's not makabel tumah because it's not moved. Ela melamed. So it teaches us shemagviya noisai. They lift up the shulchan. Umarin by lo'ile regalim, and they show the shulchan to the oile regalim, the lechem upon them. They show them the bread on the shulchan, and va'aynu lem, and they say to them, ruuchi baskam l'fnei ha'makam. Look how much you're loved in front of Hashem. Siluka kesidura, the same way they take off, siluk means to take off, the same way they take off the bread is kesidura, it's in the same freshness as it went on, as they would made it misader. Damar Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Nes Gadol, Nasa v'lechem apanim, there was always this miracle with the lechem apanim, kesidura kach siluka, the same way they put it on, that's the way they took it off, and it stayed fresh for an entire week. Shenemar, to put hot bread on the day that it's taken off, meaning the bread still stayed hot. So therefore, they did. You see that this shulchan was moved. It was picked up, right? Since it was picked up, it's not. It's not a problem. I mean, whatever. It's a problem for tum and tara. And therefore, you have to tell the Amei Haaretz not to touch it. Okay, so then the Gemara asks, well, typically mishum tzipui. Why don't you say the reason why it's tameh is because it's coated with gold, right? So meaning even though it's also the nachas, it's not meant to move, but once it's coated with gold, so then that will make it. Yeah, that's the answer to your question, Gershon, by the way. But we'll get. It's not for now, but if it's metal, it doesn't make a difference if it can't move or move. Right. So then the shaila is the oven. So okay, I think there's a different shot. Anyway, okay, but typically mishum tzibur. Why don't you say it's because it's what do you call tzibur again? Plated. The tanan hashulchan va'adulfikisha nifchasu ashachifan b'shayish. If you have a table or a chair, right? Shenifchasu, that it became less, meaning it got broken off. Or you covered the table with marble. Marble is stone, so it's not mikabel tumah. But instead of covering the entire table with marble, you left a place to put your cups. Tameh, it's going to be tameh, right? It's still tameh because it still has its status of wood. He says as long as there's place to put pieces of meat, right, then it's still going to be tameh. Meaning, but with mashma, that if you totally line it, so then it's not going to be. So you're going to say, well, atze shitim is chashav wood. It's not going to become bottle. So then that this whole din is that the wood becomes like the metal. That's by this achsalgim wood, which is, I guess, an expensive wood. I'm sorry, it's not expensive. It's a cheap wood, and therefore it becomes bottle. But a wood that's very chashuv is not going to become bottle to the metal. So then shoppers, and that makes sense. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, that says that the cheap wood is also bottle. What are you going to say? Right? So then the shulchan should become tameh, right? Even if you don't normally carry it. I would want to talk about where it's the plating is actually attached to the wood. Therefore, it becomes bottle. But if it's not attached to the wood and it's not, Rishlakish asked the Shalom Yochanan, is talking about a plating that's attached to it or not attached to it. The chayfes levazos or b'sheina chayfes levazos is talking about where it covers the edge, right? Levazos really means the rim, the lip. Rashi says the lip of the table or not. And he said to him, "Loishna b'tzipu yamer, loishna b'tzipu sheina." It doesn't make a difference if it's attached or it's not attached. Loishna b'chayfes levazos or loishna b'sheina chayfes levazos. It doesn't make a difference if it covers the edge or it doesn't cover the edge, right? But the bottom line is that when wood has metal covering it, it's going to become tameh, even though it's wood. Right? So then, even if you're going to say that the shulchan was never carried, it should still become tameh. Right? So then why are you saying that the reason why it becomes tameh is because they lifted it up? It should become tameh because it's lined with metal. Elo shani shulchan, no, the shulchan's different. The Rahmana Karya 8, the Torah calls the shulchan 8, even though it has gold on it. Tichsiv, Hamizbeach 8, Shalosh Amos, is a long pasuk here. Hamizbeach 8, Shalosh Amos Gavaya, Ba'archa Shtayim Amos, right? It's 3 Amos high, 2 Amos long, and with Tzais of Loi, and its corners, and Archa in its length, the Kirois of 8, and its wood, V'yidaber Elai Zeh Shulchan Asher Lifnei Hashem. This is the shulchan that's in front of Hashem. So pasuk b'mizbeach b'sayim b'shulchan. It starts with the word mizbeach and it finishes. I'm sorry, that's a kasha. Whatever it is, you see that the shulchan is called 8. So Gemara asks pasuk b'mizbeach b'sayim b'shulchan. Right? It starts with the word mizbeach and then it calls it the shulchan. What is it? So are we talking about the mizbeach or the shulchan? So Rabbi Yochanan Rishlakish the Amei Tavayu b'zman shebeis hamikdash kaim mizbeach mechaper al adam achshav shulchan shel adam mechaper alo. Right, at the zman that the base of Mikdash was kaim, the mizbeach is mechaper on for a person, and nowadays a person's table is mechaper on. Okay, it's a little late. We'll continue this tomorrow. We'll say this because this is a major part that's from that last Gemara there. Okay, good to know. Well, hopefully to see everybody tomorrow live and in person.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I was in the car listening before, and all of a sudden,
Hold on a second.
someone parks next.
I'm just gonna. Yeah, I did. You get it? No, I have my sapphire.
I was in the car before.
That's why I use everything.
Sitting and listening, I had the phone up, and someone parks next to me, gets out of the car, and oh, it's Yaakov.
Yeah, I do. I get to
Who is it?
The Kovowitz girl, the Kovowitz sisters. The
Oh,
Kovowitz sisters in
Across
Brooklyn.
the street from me.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Jacob, well, how did this stuff become tameh? People touched it?
Which stuff?
Everything in the base of Mikdash. Is it because people touched it?
Yeah. Amaratz.
So why couldn't they rope off like the menorah and like the shulchan or all the big items? They have to schlep it every Yom Tov into the mikveh?
Well, that's what we're saying. That it was very hard to
All right,
do.
so nothing else to do. It's a whole activity. What's the matter with you?
I mean, the Kaihanim, I guarantee you they'd love to be bouncers also.
Paris, you understand this? Mamish took up time. They didn't have Netflix. What are these guys doing? This is
Paris, I got an easy answer for you. The floor was full of blood, and the blood touched the bottom of the kalim, and the kalim were metal. So everything got wet and got tameh.
Yeah, but you mean how? Because
Because you're standing in it. Everybody was walking around in the blood.
Right, I hear.
Saying the blood caused it to be the.
Everything was all connected.
Every time it rained, it should become tameh.
It's true, but every time it rained, you didn't have a big island there.
It's a difference. All you need is one tameh person, and you're saying it runs throughout all the liquid.
You're part of my network, so truly that I shared a post that
Genzine.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they didn't rope. Why didn't they rope it off? Why didn't they? Maybe that's what they did. They told people they told Amarat to make sure not to touch it. Right? So maybe that's how they did it.
Come on. We've all been in the zoo on Chalamayid. Does anyone listen to the boundaries?
Since when do they listen?
Rebecca, we can't hear you.
What are you saying?
I said, since when do they listen?
Oh, you and Elio say the same thing. Okay, but
yes, since when do they listen? You know, okay, don't touch. Okay.
You mean they were Jewish? That's what you're saying.
They were Jewish. I don't have to say that.
But it was interesting because, like Taisa says, we're talking about the Kaihanim. We're not talking about Yisraelim. We're talking about Kaihanim. Right?
But you're seeing that from that Taisa, you see how you have Kahanim. That's what I'm arousing.
Right. Yeah. I hear you. All right, fine.
A coin doesn't automatically mean that you're a tameh chacham. It means that you have a certain status.
That's true. True.
So
that's true.
I'm not trying to understand.
Right. That's what it's referring to. It's referring to what? It's referring to the Kaihanim that are Maratzim.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Gotta get back to Farakwe from Irish.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. No, I just had an interesting machshava. We just made a siyum on the oil mayid, Sefer Shmois. We're making a siyum on Seder mayid tomorrow night, which finishes with all the oil mayid, all of this, the kalim, the mizbeach. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know where it's going, but it's
All right, you got a long drive to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I get to Nafta Shikayach.